Disabled people in Greece are often stigmatised and can struggle to get the support that they need. Very little is known about what goes on in the dozen or so institutions for disabled people in the country because access is restricted. But the BBC's Chloe Hadjimatheou did gain permission to enter one state-run home and found children locked up in cages. Well, I'm pleased to say that Chloe, who led this investigation, joins us now. Chloe, when you hear that statement, it is very alarming. What did you find?
Well, this is a state-run institution in the small southern town of Lechaina, and it caters to around 70 adults and children with disabilities. Many of them are restrained, so they're either kept in wooden cages with mattresses in the bottom, or else in wooden cells, so a single bed behind a locked wooden gate, and others are strapped to their beds. Many of them have severe learning and physical disabilities, but others, like two 9-year-old girls I met who have autism, get to go to school in the morning, and at lunchtime when they return to the institution, they're locked back inside the cages.
It sounds harrowing. How does this institution justify these measures?
Well, the director of the centre, and she's pretty new, she's been there for about a year, she says she'd like to get rid of the cages. She thinks they're wrong, but she says she's not able to because of staff shortages. So there's one nurse and one ward assistant on each floor, catering for about 20 to 25 people. So there are massive, massive shortages there, and the director says the cages are needed in order to protect the residents, but disability rights organisations I spoke to say that isn't right, that these cages are severely detrimental to the psychological health of the residents, and they say they're more for the convenience of the staff and the protection of the staff who may fear prosecution if anything goes wrong.
Well, your report is online, and I know that you were saying that the staff actually fought to get those cages there because the children were tied up beforehand. What does the government say?
Well, I went to the Ministry of Labour and Social Welfare and I spoke to Effie Beku, who's the General Secretary there in charge of these institutions, and I asked her when we could expect to see some change there. She said, I can't give you an exact timeline for when those children will be transferred out of that institution, but this country is going through the worst economic crisis since the Second World War, and the agreements we've made with our lenders at the EU and the IMF mean we're very limited in terms of hiring any new staff. Now, obviously the economic crisis is making everything worse in Greece, but actually these cages in this institution predate the crisis. In 2010, the Greek Ombudsman for Children visited this centre, and he brought out a damning report saying that the practices were illegal and degrading, and he asked for change, and the government promised change. But when I went there, the changes that I saw were very superficial. The cages have been painted pretty colours, I assume, to try and make them more cheerful. There's also some new facilities, an arts and crafts area and ergotherapy area, but it's very difficult for the centre to make use of those facilities because they just don't have the staff.
And the children? The
children are like children anywhere. One of the children, when I got there, jumped up to our photographer and clung onto her. They're looking for intimacy and attention.
Chloe, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. As I mentioned before, Chloe's report is on our website. Chloe Hadjimatheou, thank you very much for your time.